Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How are you? This is Freddie Ewan, two-time GM of the Year, Pantheon Cup champion, host of that Fantasy Football with Freddie Ewan, the Fantasy Football God. This is going to be part one. We are going to have part two tomorrow with a special guest, Chris P. This is going to be a really fun show tomorrow. We've been talking about it all week long. It's probably going to be the most watched show of that fantasy football show. Chris is from Chicago. He is in the John Galt League with me. He likes to talk trash. Guy knows his stuff, though. Guy knows his fantasy football, so it's going to be nice having him on and talk a little bit fantasy football with him. We're going to talk about where the running backs are in week 4 and what is going on with all the backs. It's been very interesting. CMC's out. Brees Hall didn't do shit yesterday. Bijan might be in the timeshare, so the top 3 running backs are really in trouble right now. But we're going to focus today. What a week 4. Good things and bad things that came out of week 4. A lot of good things and a lot of bad things. I don't know whether you want to start with the bad, but to start with the bad, the Philadelphia Eagles just looked horrible yesterday. I know we're banged up, but still, there's no excuses for getting your ass kicked. We just did not look good yesterday. The biggest news coming out of football yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. The biggest news coming out of football yesterday, obviously, Rashee Rice looks like he has a season-ending injury. The guy was going into week 4. He led in receptions, looked like Patrick Mahomes' boy, played excellent for 3 games. Freak injury, really freak injury. It was off a fumble. Mahomes actually ran into him, but it looks like Rashee Rice is going to be out for the year. I own Rice in 2 fantasy leagues, including the John Galt League, where I got him for $39, and just it's a bummer. It's a bummer. What do we do in a position where we are a Rashee Rice owner? There's really not a lot you can do. Guys who are going to get upticks is going to be Travis Kelce. Xavier Worthy, if you own Xavier Worthy right now, you have to be very happy as well, because Worthy is definitely going to get a lot more looks and a lot more targets. I think Kelce is going to have to take the reins back. He played a good game yesterday. Would he have played that good if Rice was in the game? We don't know, but Kelce is going to be back to the number 1 option for Mahomes. Not a lot of wide receivers on that team besides Worthy. Juju is going to benefit, but really the last couple years, there was not a standout wide receiver in Kansas City, and they were able to win 2 Super Bowls. So it is what it is. You gotta, luckily, losing a receiver is not as bad as losing a running back in fantasy football. You lose a running back in fantasy football, is very hard to find one. Luckily, there's some wide receivers on there and on the waiver wire that you might be able to get, which will help you out a little bit. And we're going to talk about those guys in just a little bit as well. Um, Next one that we're going to talk about, let's talk about something good. And I got a lot of friends who are Commodore fans. The Commodores look good, man. I mean, the Commodores, they look really good. I'm just going to move this over here. The score of the Commodores yesterday game, let's see, 42-14. They knocked down the Cardinals. Jane Daniels, phenomenal. But Terry McLaurin, really phenomenal. If you're a Terry McLaurin owner right now, you are pretty happy. I do own him in 1 league. I actually traded for him. He had 7 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. He's been all over the league. He was on the Falcons, he was on the Eagles, now he's on the Redskins. Or the Commandos. I don't even know. Alameda Zacchaeus, he had 6 targets, 6 receptions, 85 yards. Zach Ertz is playing well. He didn't have that great of a game yesterday, but I think that really you can't go wrong picking up, this guy Zacchaeus. Brian Robinson playing well too. 21 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. We'll talk more about the running backs again tomorrow, but Terry McLaurin, I think I think, him and Daniels are really getting something good together. On the other side, Harrison had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 45 yards, and a touchdown. But, that most of that happened in the first quarter, and Arizona didn't really get back into it. Harrison's going to be fine, still put up good numbers yesterday. Murray's going to be fine, even though he didn't put up the greatest numbers yesterday. But I'm telling you, you always want to get players on teams with offenses that score. And I hate to say it, the Commodores are doing it. I mean, the Commodores are putting up a lot of points. Doug is gonna be, really happy that I'm giving him a flake. Let's go back to bad news. Let's go back to bad news. And this guy right here, Mark Andrews. God, he has been just, I don't know what to think of Mark Andrews. He's just been completely awful. Andrews is not even getting into the passing attack. The Ravens kicked the Bills all over the field last night. Mark Andrews, a donut, a total donut from Mark Andrews. Let me just bring these stats up really quickly. Ravens win 35-10. Mark Andrews has 1 target, 0 receptions, 0 yards. Isaiah Likely only had 2 targets, 1 reception. This is the way the Baltimore Ravens are. The Baltimore Ravens are going to run the ball a lot, obviously. That's why they got Derrick Henry. He had a huge game last night, 199 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. He caught one in. Justice Hill got the most of the receptions, and Justin Hill's the running back. 6 targets, 6 receptions, 78 yards, and a touchdown. No one else got more than 3 targets, and that's the way it's going to be with the Ravens. I mean, I think the Ravens, if you got Lamar on the team and you're in a 6-point rushing touchdown, 4-point passing touchdown, you're good with Lamar. You're good with Henry, but I just think the receivers and the tight ends are not valuable players on the Ravens. Mark Andrews is someone right now, and I know he was drafted really high in a lot of leagues. I drafted him in a couple of best ball where I really thought I was getting a steal on him. Mark Andrews is not a startable tight end right now. I don't think you have to cut him just yet, but you definitely have to bench him and put in another tight end for next week because he's just not doing it. And it's a much different situation than Laporta or Kelsey or any of the other top tight ends who have not been off to a good year. Mark Andrews is really not off to a good year, and they're not even putting him in the routes. I mean, he's not even getting in and running routes. It's not even that he's not getting targets. He's just not getting routes. So there is something really seriously wrong with Mark Andrews. He is not a viable tight end star. Do not start Mark Andrews next week. Back to something good. Let's talk about something good, and let's talk about this guy, even though they lost yesterday. Here's your answer maybe on the waiver wire. The Carolina Panthers all of a sudden have an offense. With the Red Rocket out there throwing. We talked about this last week when they went on a roll, but the Panthers end up losing to the Bengals 34-24. But Thielen is out. Thielen's going to be banged up for a little bit. And, Leggett, who was a second round pick, I think he was I think it was the first pick of the second round. Maybe he had 10 targets, 6 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 13 targets. You can play Deontay Johnson all you want now. Leggett, I think, I know a couple people just dropped Leggett, and I know he's in a lot of waiver wires. He's a guy, if you lost Rice, you want to go get this guy right now as fast as possible. And you really got to feel sorry for Bryce Young because, since they benched Bryce Young, the Carolinas offense looks pretty good. And, Bryce Young, the first overall pick 2 years ago, CJ Stroud doing great down there in Texas. And it's just, it's got to be really tough being Bryce Young. I think he still has a future in the NFL, but it's not going to be with the Carolina Panthers. Dalton is probably going to play the rest of the year, played a pretty decent game, 2 touchdowns and an interception. But let's go to our next thing and we'll get you guys out of here before Monday night. We're going to talk a little bit about another guy you'll be able to pick off the waiver wire. I should have picked this guy up yesterday. I was looking at him in a couple leagues and said, maybe I should pick this guy up. Maybe I should pick this guy up, but I did not. And Josh Downs, Downs was injured and beat up. He was really good last year. Anthony Richardson was out. Flacco comes in and saves the day, beats the Steelers, 16 for 26, 2 touchdowns. Great game by Flacco. Jonathan Taylor had a good game. High ankle sprain, though, so we don't know what's going to go on with Taylor. Michael Pittman finally puts up a good game. Nine targets, 6 receptions, 113 yards. But Josh Down, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. That is a very, very good line for Josh Downs and the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know what the story is going to be as far as the quarterback is. I don't know how banged up Richardson is. I don't think he's banged up too much. Flacco looked really good, though, and Richardson has not looked good at all. So there might be another Bryce Young situation going on in Indianapolis. That's 2 high draft picks that are really suffering this year. Just goes to show how hard it is to find a quarterback in this league. You know, it's like a first round top 5 pick that's a quarterback. There are no guarantees in the NFL when it comes to quarterback. You know, we saw that with Zach Wilson in the Jets. We're seeing that with Bryce Young, and we might be seeing that with Anthony Richardson too. Jury's still out on these other guys. Jane Daniels looks phenomenal. Williams is going to need a little bit of time, but I think he'll be fine. Bo Nix, I'm really not too sure about. Bo Nix is probably a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick, but Denver was just so in desperate need for a quarterback that they took him at number 12. Going to be interesting to see how this draft class fares against last year's draft class. But, Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young are both looking like busts, and they were, two of the top 4 picks in the draft. But Josh Downs, I think, whether Richardson is or Flacco is the quarterback going forward, I think Josh Downs is a good guy to have. Pick him up on your waiver wire. These slot receivers are doing really well this year. That's what Downs is. He's going to get you a lot of targets. He's going to get you receptions. And you gotta push and plug, baby. You gotta find these players that are going to take over. Fantasy football is a year-long game. You don't just take off your draft. You just don't pick up on the draft and let your players sit. You're going to end up losing really quickly. Finally, before we go to Monday night games tonight, I want to show everyone. I'm going to single out my man Champ here. I love the guy to death, but I want to show you a big mistake. This is Fantasy Football 101. You should not ever do this. I used Champ as an example of how to use your defense last week. Now I'm going to use him as an example of how not to use your defense this week. So Gronk Donks right here. It looks like they're going to end up winning their game, but Gronk Donks have Derrick Henry. Great game, puts up 37.4 points. Phenomenal game. And he ran all over the Buffalo defense. Just 2 points. So what were you thinking having your Ravens running back going up against your Buffalo defense? Every time Henry scored a touchdown, Buffalo was losing points. And those things cannot happen. Those are hindsights that cannot happen in fantasy football if you want to end up winning. He's probably going to get lucky with tonight, but this is a big thing is, people draft these defenses and they will play them all year long, not looking at the matchups at all. There are plenty of guys that I know. I stream my defenses every week. There will be usually 99 out of 100 times I will have a different defense every single week going and playing the matchups. I have Tennessee defense tonight because they're going up against Miami. Next week, I will not have the Tennessee defense. Those extra points are going to add up, and those are going to become between your wins and losses. And once you get to the playoffs, things like that can't happen because you're going up against really good teams where people are knowing that. And it's always what matters in fantasy football is the wins and losses. It can be, if this matters tonight, if he ends up losing tonight, this will be the reason that he lost. So I hope you take a better look at your team. I hope you're watching this, and I hope you start molding your fantasy football team better. I am begging you. Trust me, take it from the fantasy football god. Anyway, that's the show. Tomorrow, look forward to it. We're going to have the show probably come out around 7 o'clock. Me and Chris are going to talk about the running back, the state of running backs. It's going to be really exciting. We got a whole lot to share on running backs. I'm not even going to get into it. Bucky Irving, CMC, Breeze, all kinds of running back stuff going on. And it should be really exciting. So make sure you guys tune in. Enjoy the games tonight.